How's it going, guys? I'm going to be talking about some of the floods that happened in Halloween of 2013 in the area that I work, which is in southeast Austin. The night started off as a normal night and didn't start raining until about halfway through our shift, which is probably about 1 or 2 in the morning. We'd have deal with rainy nights all the time, so this kind of seemed like a routine night for us. We anticipated dealing with crashes, but we never anticipated that we were going to deal with the crisis situation that we did. At the time, a lot of our shift was very new, so we hadn't experienced any flooding like we were about to that night. The last time this neighborhood had a flood was severe flood like we had that night was about 10 years prior. Onion Creek's a neighborhood that runs through the area that I work through, and there's two neighborhoods that one's right at the banks and the one's a little bit below the banks. So that sometimes we deal with a little bit of flooding, but nothing like we did this night. Um, as soon as the water came close to where we saw they were about to come over the banks, we tried to do reverse 911 phone calls, and we hailed over the PA system through the neighborhoods trying to get people to evacuate. But as you can tell, at 2 or 3 in the morning, it's pretty difficult to get everybody up and evacuated. Um, Once the waters got to a certain height, it was no longer safe for us to even be in the neighborhood driving around because of the for anybody that knows anything about rushing water, it's very dangerous. Our sergeant stressed to us that we weren't to get into the water once they got to a certain height. Um, and the reasons for that was he had experience with two officers that almost died 10 years prior in our department because of rushing water. It's just a dangerous thing. We lost a Travis County deputy almost exactly 1 year after this incident because she was crossing a low water crossing and her car got swept away. With the little manpower we had to focus our attention away from the neighborhoods and evacuating people, and we had to focus more on closing the dangerous roads that were starting to flood so that people's cars wouldn't get swept away. We're putting up barricades, moving on to the next street, closing those streets, and it was just a pretty busy night for our shift. We were the only shift out in southeast Austin, so it was about 8 or 9 of us working. Um, a fire department attempted to get some of the people that were trapped in their homes with inflatable rafts, but even they were very limited with the amount of people that were trapped in their homes, and one of the rafts even went down that night, and it was just a chaotic situation for not only us but for the fire department as well. At around 6 in the morning, we had over 70 calls holding in that one neighborhood that was below the banks, and that's unheard of for us to have 70 calls holding. Um, in the neighborhood, the residents of the neighborhood, not understanding how limited we were on the resource sources, they got pretty upset about our response, and it kind of appeared to them that we were incapable of doing our jobs that night. And that kind of carried over into our chain of command. There was a difference in opinions on between our chain of command and the higher brass on how we handled the calls that night. I think the higher brass even came out and apologized to the neighborhoods for us not going into the water and assisting in evacuation, which is kind of a slap in our face, but that's a conversation for a different day. Um, but the result, the positive thing out of this was it improved our preparation whenever it floods, and we created a better evacuation process. We have places for residents to go, pre-planned places for residents to go whenever it's about to flood, that they can go and spend the night until the waters recede. The city bought out a lot of houses that are in those flood-prone neighborhoods so that people aren't living in them. I think they're going to turn them into parks or something. Now it's gotten to the point that we almost overreact whenever it rains. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's better to be safe than sorry, so it's better to have people evacuate um, if you anticipate the possibility of a flood. But at the same time, the last several times that we've evacuated people, the floods haven't entered their homes, so you don't want to create a boy who cried wolf scenario. But overall, the response and the relationship between our department and the community has improved in how we deal with these potential floods in Austin. Um, the only casualties that we've had, including Deputy Hollis that died with Travis County, is low water crossings. We haven't had one again of people trapped in their homes and died. And to be honest, in that night, Halloween of 2013, I don't think anybody died inside their homes. I think several people died trying to leave their homes and then their cars getting swept away, which also forced us to educate the community on not to drive on roads with rushing water. You can see billboards and commercials that are advising the public not to do that. Thank you guys for listening.